Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Oh wait, time out. Where's your sheet? You know it now? Okay. Jaya Radha Madhava. You're fired. Kunda Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Mr. Bad Paramahansa. Parujikacharya Ashtotar that Sri Srimad Divine Grace. Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parujikacharya Ashtotar that Sri Srimad Divine Grace. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavinda ki jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Samaveta Bhaktivinoda ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Okay. Text 17? 18. Okay. All right. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 24th day of November, 2021 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Chapter 18, Conclusion, the Perfection of Renunciation. Text 18 on page 672. Jnanam, Gyeyam, Parigyata, Trivadha, Kamachodana, Karanam, Karmakarteti, Trivadha, Karmasangraha, Jnanam Gyeyam Parigyata, Trivadha Karmachodana, Karanam Karmakarteti, Trivadha Karmasangraha, Jnanam Gyeyam Parigyata, Trivadha Karmachodana, Karanam Karmakarteti, Trivadha Karmasangraha, Jnanam Geyam Parigyata Tribadha Karma Chodana Kadanam Karma Karteti Tribadha Karma Sangraha. Okay, time out. Jesse, can you just move over a little bit? Yeah, please. Okay. Go ahead, Prabhu. Jnanam Geyam Parigyata Tribadha Karma Chodana Kadanam Karma Karteti Tribadha Karma Sangraha. Jnanam Geyam Parigyata Tribadha Karma Chodana Kadanam Karma Karteti Tribadha Karma Sangraha. Jnanam Geyam Parigyata Tribadha Karma Chodana Kadanam Karma Karteti Tribadha Karma Sangraha. Jnanam Geyam Parigyata Tribadha Karma Chodana Kadanam Karma Karteti Tribadha Karma Sangraha. Jnanam Geyam Parigyata Tribadha Karma Chodana Kadanam Karma Karteti Tribadha Karma Sangraha. Ladies? Jnanam Geyam Parigyata Tribadha Karma Chodana Kadanam Karma Karteti Tribadha Karma Sangraha. Jnanam Geyam Parigyata Tribadha Karma Chodana Kadanam Karma Karteti Tribadha Karma Sangraha. Jnanam, knowledge. Geyam, the objective of knowledge. Parigyata, the knower. Tribadha, of three kinds. Karma, of work. Chodana, the impetus. Kadanam, the senses. Karma, the work. Karta, the doer. Iti, thus, Tribadha, of three kinds. Karma, of work. Sangraha, the accumulation. Translation. Knowledge, the object of knowledge, and the knower are the three factors that motivate action. The senses, the work, and the doer are the three constituents of action. Purport. There are three kinds of impetus for daily work: knowledge, the object of knowledge, and the knower. The instruments of work, the work itself, and the worker are called the constituents of work. Any work done by any human being has these elements. Before one acts, there is some impetus, which is called inspiration. Any solution arrived at before work is actualized any solution arrived at before work is actualized is a subtle form of work. Then work takes the form of action. First, one has to undergo the psychological process of thinking, feeling, and willing, and that is called impetus. The inspiration to work is the same if it comes from the scripture or from the instruction of the spiritual master. When the inspiration is there and the worker is there, then actual activity takes place by the help of the senses, including the mind, which is the center of all the senses. The sum total of all the constituents of an activity are called the accumulation of work. Om Jnanat Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakya Chakshu Udmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So, it's getting pretty technical. One of the illuminations that I don't want to say I had, but that I found very inspiring over the course of my career was when Prabhupada mentioned these three here, which is the thinking, feeling, and willing. We need another, Christian? Oh, you have. Okay. Thinking, feeling, and willing. And somehow I found that very illuminating, to think about how your activities are mediated, or they're kind of controlled by these activities: thinking, feeling, and willing. There's no activity, obviously, unless there's willing. There has to be some will to do it. But what inspires you to act in a certain way, to will, to use your senses, your mind, and your other facilities? Well, there's something that either it's some duty you need to perform, some impetus that comes from the senses or the mind you want to enjoy. There are things that you fear. That's another big impetus to action. And these are kind of in the realm of feeling. If certainly fearing is, and desire is in the realm of feeling. But in Krishna consciousness, we try to cultivate the higher intelligence by means of hearing the Shastra, reading, studying, associating with devotees, so that our impetuses for action can be transformed. And the higher self controls the lower self, because there's always going to be these lower impetuses for action. Just like animals. They don't have the thinking, very much of the thinking, right? But they have willing and they have feeling. They have hunger, they have sex desire, they have fear, which is like an underlying reality of all animal life. Prabhupada points out the birds. You know, you watch the birds. When I grew up, we had robins who would come down and find the worms. They would, you know, where I lived, where we had the lawn there, and you would see, but they're always like, "Uh-oh, is a cat coming?" You know, what was that? You know, and they're always ready a second to jump, you know, to fly away. That's their defense, basically, right? To fly into the tree. Safety, finally, you know. So that fear overwhelmed the hunger, which is another big impetus. So this is this thinking, feeling, willing. Now in Krishna consciousness, because we're human beings and we have an intelligence, and if we come in touch with a devotee, with the seed of devotion, with something that inspires us to further investigate, further hear more, and learn, then that kind of thinking can give us impetus to action, and the lower feelings take a back seat. But actually, when you think about it, the ultimate result, the ultimate goal that we're looking at is the feeling, pure love for Krishna. That's the feeling. And that is, you see in the spiritual world or in the material world, where we have in Vrindavan or Mayapur or any dham, you know, where Krishna engaged in his activities. There's a tremendous intelligence being used, but it's all in the service of that pure feeling of love for Krishna, isn't it? So, but in the first stages, when we begin Krishna consciousness, the feeling is not so much there. There are instances where you're feeling some bliss, and you can get a little taste of what Krishna consciousness is about. But our habits of thought and our activity are such that we may lose that. We will lose it, and it won't be spontaneous. If it was spontaneous, we'd be there. That's ragatmaka bhakti. But notice that in that ragatmaka bhakti is the word raga, which means strong feeling. Now we also want to attain vairagya. Vairagya means no material feeling, attraction. That is diminished. So those three, the thinking, feeling, and willing, and especially in the early stages, we have to cultivate that knowledge and that hearing, so that our intelligence becomes strong. And even without the feeling, we still have the will to act in Krishna consciousness. This is called sadhana bhakti. Vaidhi bhakti, according to the rules and regulations. And this is where this idea of duty comes in. You may not feel like doing it, but you do something out of duty. You may really feel like doing it, but you don't do it out of duty. The do's and the don'ts. There's always the do's and the don'ts. So that's, now Krishna is not exactly speaking about this, although Prabhupada doesn't mention thinking, feeling, willing here. So there's these technical, there's knowledge and the objective of knowledge. I think he's referring to the object of knowledge, and then the knower. So I think this is a fairly graspable concept. There's something to be known. Since say these pictures on the wall, I like to point out that devotees, those who are familiar with Krishna Leela, Ram Leela, they see the same picture as someone who just wanders in here, for the first time, doesn't really know what's going on, just kind of looking around, and they see, oh, that's a nice painting. It looks to be pretty well done, but they have no idea what it means, But for a devotee, for Prabhupada, I mean, he would see these paintings, and in the early days they were much cruder, But the artists were sincere. They got better, And he would say, "Oh, these are wonderful. They're windows on the world." And you could see windows on the spiritual world. And then you could see how he was looking at the painting with such different experience than we had, even if we knew what the Leela was. He was seeing it in such a way. So, what is knowledge and the object of knowledge? The object of knowledge may be the same for different people, but the knowledge that they're getting, the experience that they're getting, is different according to the background of their knowledge. This Ram Leela, for someone who's a devotee of Ram, who knows all the pastimes, it evokes so many thoughts about what's going on. Hanuman is around the corner, or something's happening, or maybe Ravana he's spying and he's looking. There's a whole experience going on, right? and so the objective in Krishna consciousness is to train the thinking, feeling, and willing so it's always in tune with Krishna's desires. And even if our feeling may not be, not feeling love or spontaneous devotion, our activities are, and we're trying to train the mind to always think of Krishna and to study the Shastra and to act in such a way. And then we get the blessings of the Super Soul within. He's guiding us, giving us intelligence, how to do things, arranging even for us to progress in devotional service. This is a very important aspect, is that unlike the yogis and the jnanis, what to speak of the karmis, those who are simply fruitive workers, they're all on their own. Krishna is not at all really helping them. He's helping the bhaktas. The simple bhakta who's trying his best to chant the holy name and put his dhoti on is getting, Krishna's helping him, giving him intelligence. Whereas the yogis, the impersonalists, what to speak of the gross materialists, he's watching. He's simply sanctioning and overseeing, and he's not really involved. He's the observer. But as soon as we start to turn our attention to Krishna and have some interest in developing affection for him, then he takes a personal role in it. And this is why the bhaktas have a great advantage over the other so-called transcendentalists. Because they're doing it out of ultimately a selfish objective. This comes up in the very second verse of the Bhagavatam. Dharmak projita kaitavatra. Atra means here, in this literature. All cheating religions are kicked out. Now, what does that mean? What does that include? Well, that means any kind of dharma which is self-motivated, which the ultimate motivation is elevation to heavenly planets, achieving more opulence in this world, whatever it may be. And Prabhupada points out, Sridhar Swami, the original commentator, has said that even includes mukti. Because the desire for mukti alone, for oneself, is certainly a selfish desire. What does Prahlad say? Prayena deva munayo swavamukti kama. For the most part, he says, these sages who are, impersonalists, they're after their own liberation. And that's a kind of kama. That's a kind of personal desire. And what's the result? They go where there's no people. Maunam. Maunam is the origin of the word muni, right? So they silence. And if I say something, I may say, I may get distracted. So I don't want to hear anything. I don't want to say anything. Maunam charanti vijane. They wander where there's no one else, in the isolated reaches of the Himalayas or the forest, a cave somewhere. So I won't get distracted, And then, of course, they meditate, perform severe austerities. Vijane napararta nishta. They're not at all determined to help others become liberated. Because they think, Right? Let me just merge into the oneness and get Kaivalya, and I'll be done. That's selfish. So what does Prahlad say? Naitan bihaya kripana vimamuksha eko. I'm not going to give up these kripanas, these poor wretches who are trying to enjoy Maya Sukhaya in the previous verse, illusory happiness and pleasure and suffering like anything. I'm not going to give them up, desiring my own mukti. Naitan kripana vimamuksha eko. Nanyam tvarasti sharanam brahmato nupashe. Because he's speaking directly to the Lord Nrsingadev. Because I don't see anyone else but you who can help them. Meaning, I have to give them you. I have to, be your representative. And that's the real attitude of the pure devotee who becomes a conduit, or as Prabhupada would say, a pure medium for Krishna's mercy. That's real in the Vaishnava. So to get to that point, we need to do things. Krishna consciousness is very active. Because if we don't do Krishna's work, we're going to do Maya's work. So we need a whole program, starting from when we wake up to when we take rest. And those who are really serious, the more that they try to mold their life in such a way that their activity is helping them to remember Krishna. Now, of course, this is a dilemma, because in this world, you have to keep body and soul together. So there's a job, and the chances are your job is not reminding you of Krishna. So that's a challenge. But still, there's so much time we have, so much we can do in the place that we control, like our home. What pictures do we have on the wall? What sound is playing? What food are we eating? In other words, you make your home into a temple as far as possible, so that it can be a refuge and it can be furthering your devotion service. And then in your work, hey, try to remember Krishna. Try to preach to your coworkers or whatever. But the goal is that our activities are being impelled. The impetus for our activities is ultimately the desire of Krishna. Then we're in the pure state, and we're not getting any kind of result, any kind of karma for that. When Prabhupada gives the example in one of these purports, he would give it a lot. I heard it on a tape recently. Because after all, it's a battlefield. So he says if someone, the duty of the soldier, the real soldier, is to take orders from the commander and go and kill the enemy. If he starts wondering, that enemy, he's a family man, should I do it or not? Maybe he's a good guy. No, he has to simply do it. And then he's not responsible. And he kills so many people, so many soldiers, and gets a medal for that. But if he goes home and to his hometown, and he kills one person, he'll be arrested and prosecuted. What's the difference? He's doing it on his own account. So our activities oftentimes may seem similar to ordinary activities. But you'll soon realize that the whole difference in bhakti is the motivation. Why are you doing something? What is your motivation? And that's Prabhupada calls it the impetus, the inspiration. And when that inspiration is coming from Krishna, from the Super Soul, from the Shastra, from the Guru, then we're on the safe side. And why this is where faith comes in. Faith comes in, is that these entities really, really, really have our best interest at heart. And it begins with Krishna in the heart, who is Surit. What does he say? Peace formula, we should know this one. Bhoktaram yagyatapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram suridam sarvabhutanam gyatpa mam shantim richati. Prabhupada gave this as the peace formula. So the first thing is those who understand me, Krishna says, as the ultimate enjoyer of all sacrifices, Bhoktaram yagya and austerities. Meaning that these yagyas that we perform, or austerities, need to be authorized by the spiritual master in the Shastra, that this is really what Krishna wants us to do. This is how he wants us to worship him. And they often involve some sacrifice, some austerity. And then Krishna is the enjoyer of it. Sarvaloka Maheshwaram, the supreme controller of all planets, of everything, the ultimate God. And then, very important concept, because it's after all bhakti we're talking about, and that's Suridam Sarvabhutanam, the best well-wisher of every living entity. Now, I thought about this recently, because one of the obvious principles or the characteristics of the super soul that we realize is that he knows everything. He's in the heart of everyone and in every atom. So he's the gold standard of omniscience. It is omniscient, right? So I remember, how many years ago was it that, I always forget his name, the guy who revealed that the NSA is spying on all our emails? Who was it? Edward Snowden. Yeah, so he revealed that, and he had the presence of mind to leave the country because he figured they would pick him up. And they probably would have, so he's in Russia now. But why was that so disturbing? Because we don't have any great faith that the NSA really has our best interest in mind, right? They may be spying on us for this reason, that reason, whatever. Plus, some of the things that we do, maybe not so, we don't want everyone to know about them. That's another thing. So, but isn't it the same thing with the super soul? If you really accept that Krishna is in our heart, he knows everything that we're doing. Okay, what is he going to do with that knowledge? Well, he's going to give you good advice how you can become purified. He really is our surita. So that means that when we take our impetus for action from the super soul through the medium of the Shastra, through the medium of the spiritual master, Lord Chaitanya says he appears externally as both of those and gives us good advice. Then we have to have faith that really this is for my best interest, ultimately. Although some people think, what are you doing? You had a great career doing this and that and this and that. Yes, but that career is ultimately a dead end because it's based on this body. Now I realize I'm a spirit soul, and I'm doing what is best for myself, my actual self, not from some external reason. So all of that is involved here, and understanding these intricacies of action, that we are karta, we are the doer in the sense that we're the jiva, and we have a minute independence. We can act on the basis of Krishna's instruction, or we can act on the basis of our mind's instruction, our feelings, which have nothing to do with Krishna. And we've been doing that for millions of births. So when we get in tune, this idea of tuning up, there's something called a sympathetic strings, like in a tambura, or in a sitar. Where there's the main strings, and then there's the other strings that are vibrating in sympathy, meaning it's giving an overtone. It can be very beautiful that way. So we're meant to vibrate in tune with Krishna's dancing, music, and his desires and activities. And then we actually feel peace. Complete peace is there when we have no separate desires from Krishna. That comes up in the end of the second chapter. There's a lot at the end on peace. Vihaya kama niksavang pumam chadati nikspraha niyamamon rahankara sashanti madigachati. One who gives up all personal desires and lives free from desires. Vihaya kama pumam chadati nikspraha, no desires. Nirmamon rahankara, having no sense of separate possessiveness. Understand what is that first mantra? Ishavashamidam sarvam. Everything in the universe belongs to the Isha, the Supreme Lord. We're entitled to our quota, but not beyond that. So one who lives that way, then he can actually have peace. Now Prabhupada makes it clear what desirelessness means, because this is all desire. How can you be free of desire? We're living entities. We have to have some desire. So Prabhupada says, the desire to be Krishna conscious is actually desirelessness. The desire to fulfill Krishna's desire, that's real desirelessness. As living entities, we can't eradicate desire. That's a false goal by some other transcendentalists. Think you can eradicate desire. It's not possible. That very desire is a desire. I desire to be desireless, isn't it? How can you eradicate? and it's very frustrating. It's like the impersonalists who neglect to worship Krishna's lotus feet. This famous verse: "Ye and ye adavindaksha vimukta maninas tvayasta bhavad avishuddha buddhaya aruha kutrena padam padang tatap patantyadho anadvita yushmat angreya." Offered by the demigods for Krishna in the womb. They said, besides your bhaktas, there are others, O lotus-eyed Lord, Anabindaksha, Vimuktamaninas, who think that they're liberated, but whose intelligence is actually impure. Abhishuddha buddhaya. By great effort, they rise up to the Brahman platform. Some of them. You can imagine what it's like trying to control the senses and the mind without the Hare Krishna mantra, without the deities, without the prasadam, without the books. Just you and your mind, right? It's a losing proposition. So anyway, but some of them can for some time rise up to Brahmabhuta. And there they feel, oh, I made it. I'm liberated now, you know. But what is it really? It's just that I'm aware, I am that I am. You know, there's no interaction, there's nothing. But then it says, Adhu Kuchin Padam Patantyadho, Anadhi Yushadangara, because they're averse to serving your lotus feet. They don't have anything to do there. You know, it's lonely, it's boring. So they come down again and start a hospital or something like that. So this is, when we fill our mind with thoughts of Krishna, when we fill our mind with the instructions of Shastra as given by pure devotees, and we become impelled, inspired to act by the example of more advanced devotees. That's also important, to have good examples. Most importantly, the Acharya. That's the whole meaning of Acharya. He acts. The three qualifications of real Acharya: knows the Shastra, the revealed Shastra, lives by the Shastra, and teaches the Shastra. And Srila Prabhupada exemplified that. So teaching means giving a good example. Prabhupada gave that perfectly. And create and train up those who can also give good example. So then that becomes our safe model for how to act. And if we do that, gradually the feeling comes. Right? We get to the point of nishta. The anarthas are purified from the heart to some degree. And then ruchi increases. Everything becomes more tasty. Can you imagine? You know, as soon as you chant Hare Krishna, the nectar, the name, you know. Let me have 1,000,000 mouths. Why only one tongue, you know? And you can just go on chanting, chanting, chanting. It's wonderful, these kirtan melas they have. We haven't had one down here. We should try to organize one. You know, just for several days. You know, from morning till night, basically, you just chant beautiful kirtans, you know, kirtaniyas. And you get absorbed in the holy name. And you realize, I'm not really hungry. I just want to chant, you know. You break through, you know. So that's really the nature of the holy name. And we read about it so much. Lord Chaitanya's kirtans. Just yesterday I read this incredible chapter in the Chaitanya Bhagavad, I think chapter 23 of the Madhya Kanda. For those who are not so familiar, there was a certain point where the Qazi in Navadvip, he was trying to suppress the kirtan because he was getting complaints, not from the Muslims, but from the smarta Brahmins, those who felt their Brahminical status being threatened because Lord Chaitanya was uplifting everybody, you know, into that status. And he said, this is not in the Shastra, this loud chanting. What is all this? They're disturbing our sleep, you know. And it's silent chanting, you know. Anyway, they complained to the Qazi. The Qazi went out, famously broke him a dunga drum. But according to this chapter, he was terrorizing the devotees, threatening to, you know, turn them into Muslims. And it was a terror, a reign of terror. And they stopped chanting, you know, and they went to Lord Chaitanya, this is going on. He became furious, like Nrsingadev. He said, we'll see what this Qazi can do. Everyone tonight, get these torches. You know the story. And, you know, and the devotees got so into it. Lord Chaitanya was inspiring them, you know, giving them fearlessness. So they all got torches, hundreds of thousands, you know, it was a big population, you know. And they went out in the evening, and the big thing was that for the first time, Lord Chaitanya's dancing was going to be visible to all. Because till that time, he was just singing and dancing in Srivasangan. It was all hidden away, you know. So everyone was like completely enthralled and inspired, and they were just completely fearless, you know, of the Qazi and the Muslim soldiers and everything. And I'm sorry? I don't think so. That's you mean this one here? No, what's described is much wilder than that, and it's not nighttime. This is daytime. Anyway, So they're all, you imagine these thousands of torches, and men, women, and children. Everyone is seeing Lord Chaitanya. They're really transported into this realm of complete ecstasy. It goes on and on and on, and gradually they wend their way toward the Qazi's house, and he sent out his soldiers, but they saw, whoa. They're not afraid of us. I mean, the men, women, and children, they weren't afraid. They said they're trying to hide their beards. It's because some of them had beards. They threw away their weapons, We're one of you. Some of them started dancing and imitating. So, so finally, according to the account in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, they finally got to the house of the Qazi, And according to the Chaitanya Bhagavat, Lord just said, okay, destroy the house. And they started wrecking the house, and the Qazi was cowering in the back of it. It was a big mansion, But then Lord Chaitanya, he was in the mood of Nrsimhadev. I'm going to rip his head off, And some of the devotees prayed to him. No, it's not time for the universal, dissolution and the annihilation now, please, So he, But according to the Chaitanya Charitamrita, there was this whole conversation. Because what happened was, and first time you go to Mayapur, at least when I went in the 70s, they tell you, yes, and anytime in Navadvip, forever, we can do Harinam. This is part of what came out of this pastime, is that the Qazi said, none of my descendants will ever prohibit Harinam Sankirtan. So we had this conversation with the Qazi. And the Qazi welcomed him, and there was some kind of a family relationship, I think, so the Qazi was appealing, I'm your uncle, after all, like that. So we're friends, But the Lord said, why do you kill your mother? What do you mean? The cow, the cows. Well, it says that in the Vedas too, that the cows, but that's forbidden in the Kali Yuga. No cow killing. That is one of the things that's forbidden. Anyway, there was a conversation. And the Qazi revealed that, on the night that I broke the Madanga drum, I had a dream. And this big lion got on my chest. And he warned me, don't ever do that again, and I'll rip you apart. And he had his fingernails on my chest. And I woke up and I had all these marks on my chest. It was for real. So anyway, what came out of that, he actually converted the Qazi. He became his devotee, and he forbade any of his descendants to stop the Sankirtan. But it's such an incredible chapter, and you really get a taste. You see how Krishna consciousness, especially Sankirtan and Harinam Sankirtan, can blow through all kinds of hesitancies and doubts and depressions and whatever things you have, because of the power of the chanting of the holy name. When it's done purely, and you get the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. And this movement started that way, and it's being sustained through the congregational chanting of the holy name. So, it wasn't exactly according to Jnanam, Gayam, Karma, but I think it all culminates in that, ultimately, this chapter. Any questions?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Bol.
May I, Prabhu?
Go ahead.
Prabhu, the quote from the translation is, quote, knowledge, the object of knowledge, and the knower are the three factors that motivate action, end quote. So, Prabhu, in my understanding, and correct me if I am wrong, there are two types of being active. Being active because, by essence, by nature, the soul is always active, and being active because of becoming motivated for action due to knowledge and the object of knowledge.
I'm sorry, so I missed that word. What, what?
Motivated for becoming active. Yes, motivated.
Okay, okay.
Motivated for becoming active due to knowledge and the object of knowledge. Okay. So my question is,
Haribo.
Which one of the two is the best?
Yeah. Is this free? I think it is. Amoga, it's may come back. Yeah, please take a seat on this side. Okay, and we'll get you a book, hopefully. We don't have so many people. Yeah, we have a book for it? Okay, thanks. Okay, so what, I'm sorry, I lost the track, the motivation for action?
Okay, so two types of being active. Being active because by nature, by essence, the soul is always active.
Uh-huh.
And the other type of being active is being active because I am motivated for action because of knowledge and the object of knowledge. So my question is, which one of the two is best?
Okay, I think you might have a misconception there. This idea that the soul is always active is certainly true, but the way in which the soul is active and the actions that he performs are in terms of what we're just reading here, the knowledge that you have, for instance. In other words, why do you do one thing rather than another? Because you have knowledge that if I act in this way, then this will be pleasing to me. This will somehow please me in my senses and my mind, somehow or other. So the knowledge has to be there. Just to act, without knowledge is like madness. In other words, there has to be some knowledge, and that's true for the soul, even in lower forms of life. Even the plants, they have a rudimentary knowledge. They have a way of sensing the sun is over there. All right, let me turn that way. Okay, and now I'm getting fed. Sunshine. So that knowledge produced some, rudimentary action. Of course, the mind's very, very rudimentary. So the soul is always active. That comes in the 3rd chapter, right? You can't stop doing anything. Nahi kaschit chanamapi jadatishtat akarma krit. You may be thinking of that verse, where the soul is always active. So there's no question of stopping activity. The question is, what is the quality of that activity? And for those in lower forms of life, they don't have the facility of the intelligence to contemplate, well, what activity can actually give me the best result? This idea of Shreya, as opposed to Preya, right? Shreya, the ultimate good result. And that knowledge is not something that we can get on our own. We have to be blessed with the association of someone who has the knowledge, who's enlightened. Charya, as I say, guru. So the fact is that we will act, even those who are trying to, as I mentioned, rise up to the Brahman and stop all activity. It's fruitless, because we're by nature active, and we by nature have feelings. We want to have interaction with others, and so if it's not being guided by a transcendental source of knowledge, then it will be guided by our own imperfect knowledge that we may gain here and there, and it's mediated. And so it will keep us bound in the material world. We will act, and that action is either going to bind us or it's going to liberate us. So we want to find out what is that action which progressively liberates and progressively gives us, awakens us closer to that source of real happiness, which is this spontaneous love for God. Now we're spontaneously attracted to Maya, because we've cultivated that. So therefore, we have all these austerities, regulations. Even though we don't feel like it, we still have to do it, because we know at the end, we will awaken our spontaneous desire to act in Krishna's service. Prabhu, I want to go on.
Prabhu, before you go on, brilliant answer to my question. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna. Go ahead, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Sorry.
Oh, we have another one. Okay, hold on to that. I think, Dhanavar, you have something?
Yeah, I want quick answer a question, the one you just explain it to Prabhu.
Okay.
Okay, Prabhu, Hare Krishna, you said that spontaneous love, and sometime when we in Kali Yuga, some people have spontaneous love, and then they say sajya or something is not good. So I'm confused. So spontaneous love, it's possible in or is it okay to have, or how?
Well, it's definitely okay to have. It's not so easy to get.
Not easy to get.
Yeah, it's not easy. It's not like it's bad to have spontaneous love for Krishna. That's called ragatmaka bhakti. Sometimes probably we use the term raganuga to mean ragatmaka. But raganuga means to follow. And raganuga means to follow in the footsteps of someone who's already in the stage of ragatmaka bhakti, one of the intimate servants of Krishna in the spiritual world. So, at the present moment, if we're spontaneous attracted to Maya often, material happiness. And so we have all these rules and regulations to train us. It's not our natural state. It's in a diseased condition. So we should know that our healthy condition is to be spontaneously attracted to serve Krishna in all wonderful varieties of ways. And what do we get the model for that? Read the Krishna book, the 10th canto. It's like the gopis didn't have to decide, should we or should we not go out to see Krishna today? He's calling with that flute. No. And that flute, it was so powerful a force that they couldn't even, finish dressing themselves. In other words, it was spontaneous. That is a healthy state. Now, in preaching, of course, that can also be spontaneous. One has this great desire to give Krishna to others, which is very healthy. Because that's what Krishna wants. That's what Lord Chaitanya wants. That's what the Guru wants. And we'll find ourselves being very happy in Krishna consciousness if we can cultivate that desire and do it. Which I understand that you sometimes go out on book distribution. You know about that. Aren't you spontaneously attracted sometimes to distribute books, Dhanavari?
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you.
There you go.
Right.
So you keep cultivating that desire, and you'll be situated very nicely.
Okay,
right.
Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Haribol. Okay, so you want to ask now? Go ahead.
So just some context for my question. So when Arjun expresses to Lord Krishna that, I want to go away, not fight this battle, I want to just meditate on the holy name, renounce my duties, but then at that time Krishna tells him, no, you have to, this is your destiny, this is your, dharma, which you have to fulfill. So now, for many people in the present age where Lord Krishna is not there to directly tell you that, these duties you have to fulfill, how do we know, what is our destiny in the practical world, besides chanting the holy name, besides engaging in kirtan and so on?
Yeah. Well, first thing, Arjun wasn't thinking, I'm just going to go off and chant the holy name. He was... He was fighting against it. I mean, he was covered by Krishna, He's an eternal associate of Krishna. But he was covered for the very reason that this Gita could be spoken. Okay. But it's not that he didn't want to fight. He ardently wanted to see his guru, his teacher, and Bhishma Dev, and his friends and relatives alive. And so therefore he wanted very strongly not to fight. There's a difference between not wanting to fight. Oh, I don't want to fight. I really, really, really want to not fight. I want to not fight. You see what I'm saying? Because he wanted to. There's a difference. So because he was thinking in the bodily concept, right, the bodily relation. So it was a very stark contrast that, Krishna arranged. Yeah, because, I have to kill my friends and relatives. But that's ultimately what he surrendered to do. Because it was what Krishna wanted for the ultimate good purpose of reinstituting Dharma, So, and what was the thrust of the question again?
So practically, how do we decide, should we continue with, the balance between when you're living in the outer world, between your practical duties and your,
Yeah. Well, for this, you want to try to remember Krishna as much as possible. So try to come up to the standard of chanting, if you can make time, to chant 16 rounds. And when you associate, then you take some advice on specific questions. Should I do this or should I do this? And how can I increase my devotional service? It's difficult, as I mentioned before, because, there's so much time has to be spent just keeping body and soul together. But at the same time, we know that the real goal of life is to become progressively Krishna conscious. So there's a tension that's set up there. That's why, these ashrams exist where people say, I mean, we had devotees who, actually, it happened that the pandemic was a real impetus to push a bunch of devotees. I really got to get serious, right? And we had a lot of devotees join at that time when it came in 2020. And so it's a balance, and you need to have, to like sit down and consult. How can I increase my devotion, and how can I increase my entanglement in the material world? Each person is individual.
And what I also meant was that maybe, is it possible that Krishna has some kind of purpose for you in the outer world? Like he wants you to fulfill some duty, like in regards to the world, or is it just that he wants you to be devoted to him?
I'm not going to guess exactly what you have in mind. But there's certain practices, that he wants us to get very fixed in. And then it becomes more clear what our role will be. Yeah. All right, let's go on. We have time for one more. Where are we? 19? Right? 19, right? Jnanam karma cha kartacha Sridhaiva gunabhedataha Prochati gunasankyani Yatavat Trinutanyapi. According to the three different modes of material nature, there are three kinds of knowledge, action, and performer of action. Now hear of them from me. Purport. In the 14th chapter, the three divisions of the modes of material nature were elaborately described. In that chapter, it was said that the mode of goodness is illuminating, the mode of passion materialistic, and the mode of ignorance conducive to laziness and indolence. All the modes of material nature are binding. They are not sources of liberation. Even in the mode of goodness, one is conditioned. In the 17th chapter, the different types of worship by different types of men in different modes of material nature were described. In this verse, the Lord says that he wishes to speak about the different types of knowledge, workers, and work itself according to the three material modes. Okay, so we have, it's no point in reading another one. We'll pick that up, text 20 on Monday. So all these divisions about the modes, this is like a third chapter. We saw this in the 17th chapter, the 14th chapter, now in the 18th chapter he's also dealing with it. So the idea is we want to be able to navigate our way in this material world, which is after all the realm of the material modes, without getting infected by any of those modes and having ourselves diverted from pure devotional service. And it's not easy, because we still have the tendencies from all these births, many millions of births of conditioning. And so it's very possible to get diverted. And therefore, Krishna is giving us a roadmap here, how to recognize, wait a minute, this is the mode of passion. I feel myself getting deviated, and I can getting tempted to forget Krishna. So let me run back to Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna. Let me do this. So we don't. So all of this is very important to understand how work happens, what are our impetuses, and how we can stay on the auspicious side. Now, one verse comes to mind, and this isn't from the Bhagavatam, and it always comes back to this association. Satam prasangan mama virya sambido bhavanti ritkana rasayana katha tadjoshanarashu apavarga vartmani shraddha ratir bhakta anukamishiti. How to nourish our bhakti step by step, anukamishiti. By association with learned devotees, you'll hear in that association talks about me with the proper mood and attitude and erudition. You see. And from the devotees, that Krishna Katha is like life-giving elixir. Rasayana Katha. And following this easiest of all yoga processes. Come, sit, hear. I have to hear, with attention, but that's basically it. Ashu, quickly, Apavarga Vartmani, on this path of liberation, one develops one's shraddha. The key element, the foundation of everything, is the faith. faith in Krishna, faith in the holy name, faith in the Guru, faith in the Shastra. All this underlies our activity, our desire and our impetus to work for Krishna. So the Shraddha is nourished, which also nourishes the Bhakti. Shraddha, Rati, and then Bhakti. In this case, Rati means attraction and Bhakti means pure devotion. Anukramishriti, step by step. So that association now in the modern age, part of that association can happen electronically, it can happen through the books, but whatever it is, there needs to be a way where we can hear real, pure Krishna Katha. And that will keep us enlivened, nourish our faith, and keep us strong in Krishna consciousness. So I thought I'd end on that note. And
thank you so much. Very nice class, bro.
Hare Krishna. But I haven't ended yet. I have to have a little poem. So this is from Rishabdev, inspired by Rishabdev's famous verse, Nayam Deo De Abhajane Loke. Don't waste your this precious human life. Don't waste this precious human life, dear friend, by working hard for hoggish happiness. Through bhakti yoga, worldly life transcend and learn to taste divine love's endless bliss. So this is my encouragement for you and also for me tonight. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol.